My friends, sometimes life doesn't give you an explanation. Sometimes all it gives you is a silence, a waiting room, a test, and in that silence you wonder, God, what are you doing? Why the delay? But I came here to tell you something that's been stirring in my spirit. God said. It's all planned for the end of June 2025. Not by accident, not by mistake, not by coincidence. It's been written. You see, God doesn't move according to panic. He moves by purpose, and when He makes a promise, when He gives a word, when He lays out a blueprint from heaven, it's done, even if you don't see it yet. Even if it's still unfolding, the timing is divine. Some of you feel like your life's been on pause, your breakthrough has been waiting, your healing has been delayed, your answers have been lost in the mail. But hear me today, God is not late. He's strategic. There is a divine appointment set, an unshakable moment in time, the end of June 2025. That's not just a date on a calendar, that is a holy deadline. That's when things begin to shift. That's when the seeds you've planted in prayer begin to break through the soil. That's when the fire in your belly meets the wind of heaven. God's not just preparing the blessing. He's been preparing you for the blessing. I know it's been hard. You've cried when no one saw you. You've sacrificed when no one clapped for you. You've held on when everything in you wanted to let go. But I need you to understand something deep right now. What's coming requires who you've become. God didn't forget about you. He's been forming you. He's been stretching your patience, your character, your faith. Why? Because the size of the assignment at the end of June 2025 is going to demand the full strength of who you are. So don't give up in the last chapter before the miracle. Don't walk away in the final act before your purpose is revealed. The enemy always attacks hardest right before God releases the answer. Confusion is a sign you're close. Discomfort is a sign you're growing. Delay is not denial, it's divine timing. June 2025 is not the end. It's the beginning of the shift. Heaven has a plan, and you're in it. You may not know all the steps, but if you trust the author, you'll walk right into destiny. God doesn't lie. He doesn't improvise. He orchestrates. Divine timing is never rushed. God's plan is on schedule. There's something deeply powerful in understanding that God doesn't work within our deadlines. He doesn't respond to the ticking of the clock or the urgency of our human expectations. He exists outside of time, yet He governs time. When He says something is coming, it's not a maybe, it's not a guess. It's a guarantee. But that guarantee comes with one condition: faith in the waiting. See, we live in a world obsessed with speed, fast answers, quick solutions, instant gratification. But God is not a microwave God. He is a master craftsman, and craftsmanship takes time. When God plans something, He is looking at every angle, every soul involved, every door that must open, every heart that must soften. He is orchestrating what you can't see. While you're worried about the when, God is focused on the how, and that how is being perfectly arranged for its appointed time. Most people misinterpret waiting as stagnation, but in the kingdom of God, waiting is a form of movement. It's trust in motion. It's the refining fire of preparation. It's where your strength is tested, your faith is stretched, your motives are purified, and it's where your heart is aligned with His. Because if He gave it to you too soon, it could crush you. If He opened that door prematurely, you might walk through it unprepared. Divine timing doesn't just protect the blessing, it protects you. Think about the seasons. Spring doesn't apologize for not being summer. Winter doesn't rush to become spring. They arrive in their set time. That's the way heaven works. There is a season for planting and a season for harvesting. But what happens in between is the part we often resist. The waiting room, the stretch, the silence, but even silence has a sound in the spirit. Even waiting has movement in heaven. When God declares that something is planned, it's not a vague hope. It's a set appointment. Heaven operates like clockwork, not by our time, but by His timing. You might feel like you're behind, like you've missed your moment, but God doesn't work according to earthly calendars. What felt like a delay was really God holding things back until everything and everyone was in place. That divine alignment takes time. Sometimes the people you need to meet aren't ready yet. Sometimes the opportunity that's meant for you is still being prepared. Other times you are still being shaped into the person who can carry the weight of what God is about to deliver. It's not just about arrival. It's about becoming the kind of vessel that can hold what God has promised. You may be looking around and comparing your journey to others. They're getting married. They're buying homes. They're launching businesses, and you're still in the hallway, waiting for a door to open, but their chapter isn't your chapter. Their clock isn't your clock. Don't confuse movement with progress, and don't confuse delay with denial. You are not behind. You are right on time for what God has for you. Sometimes God holds things back because He wants to show you who He is before He shows you what He can give. The blessing is beautiful, but the relationship is eternal. And the longer you walk with Him in faith, the more you begin to understand that His timing is an expression of His love. He is not slow, He is deliberate. Every second in His plan serves a purpose. There's peace in knowing that nothing can rush what is divinely scheduled. No enemy can sabotage it. No mistake can cancel it. No human hand can block what God has written. When He sets a time, He sets a motion in the spirit realm that cannot be reversed. Heaven begins to align circumstances, conversations, and connections to make sure that when the moment comes, everything fits perfectly. But trust is the currency that carries you from promise to fulfillment. Trust that what you're walking through now is not punishment, it's positioning. Trust that the tears you've cried are watering something under the surface. Trust that the silence is not rejection, it's preparation. God's schedule doesn't move at the speed of fear or pressure, it moves at the pace of purpose. And that purpose is unfolding exactly as He planned. Your preparation was never wasted, it was necessary for the promise. Every moment you spent in the shadows, every hour you thought no one saw, every sacrifice you made in silence, all of it counted. Nothing you went through was for nothing. It may have felt invisible to the world, but it was deeply visible to heaven. You weren't being overlooked, you were being refined. You weren't forgotten, you were being forged for the future God already had in mind for you. Sometimes the hardest part of preparation is the silence that comes with it. You pour out your time, your effort, your tears, and you don't hear anything back. You ask yourself, is any of this even making a difference? But God has a way of planting greatness in the dark. Just like seeds go underground before they sprout, so too does purpose get buried before it blooms. What you thought was isolation was actually incubation. God was hiding you, not to deny you, but to develop you. You see, before the platform comes the process. Before the miracle comes the obedience. Before the open door, there is always a closed season that tests your resolve. God doesn't give kingdom assignments to untested hearts. He doesn't pour destiny into leaky vessels. So what you thought was just struggle, just delay, just confusion, it was all part of the shaping. He was teaching you how to carry the weight of what's coming without crumbling under it. Preparation often looks like struggle on the outside, but growth on the inside. You were being taught how to trust Him when you had nothing. How to praise when the room was empty. How to stand when your legs were shaking. That was no accident. Those moments built your spiritual spine. They developed a kind of strength that can't be taught in comfort. God allowed those experiences so when the promise comes, you won't just receive it. You'll sustain it. There are things God has prepared for you that require a certain level of spiritual maturity. He wasn't just getting the blessing ready for you. He was getting you ready for the blessing. It's easy to want elevation, but elevation without foundation is dangerous. God cares too much about your soul to let success arrive before you're ready to carry it well. So every lesson, every loss, every no, every delay, He was using it to build character in you, not just accomplishment around you. People may have walked away from you because they couldn't see the vision. That's fine. They weren't supposed to carry what you're called to carry. Your preparation wasn't for public applause. It was for private alignment. It was for your integrity. It was for your discipline. It was for your roots, because God knows what's coming. He knows the spiritual storms that may rise when you step into your assignment, and He made sure you were equipped, not just excited. What's powerful about preparation is that it never shows up flashy. It shows up in obedience, in waking up and doing what you were told to do, even when nothing changed, in showing up with excellence when no one was watching, in choosing patience over panic and wisdom over noise. That's the kind of preparation that heaven rewards, not the loud moments, but the faithful ones. Sometimes God lets you practice in private before He presents you in public. Just like David was trained with lions and bears before he ever faced Goliath, you too were trained in battles no one saw. And those battles were real, the pain was real, the questions were real, but so was the growth. You learned how to fight spiritually, how to speak life over your own future, how to hold your peace, how to listen before reacting. That is not wasted time. That is divine equipping. We often want the promotion, the blessing, the spotlight. But we forget that God builds people from the inside out. He's more concerned with who you're becoming than what you're doing. Because when the moment comes and the doors swing open, He doesn't want you stepping in half, built. He wants you to walk in whole, healed, wise, and anchored. So yes, it took longer than expected. Yes, there were days you almost gave up. But nothing was in vain. God was laying bricks with every step you took. He was writing a story far deeper than you imagined. And when that promise finally shows up, you'll realize that what you thought was wasted time was actually the most important time of all. Spiritual delays are strategic, not accidental. When it feels like everything has slowed down, when doors aren't opening and prayers seem unanswered, it's easy to think something's gone wrong. But what you call a delay, God calls design. His timing isn't random. He doesn't misplace promises. Every moment of pause in your life has a purpose that far exceeds your understanding. He sees the entire canvas while you're still staring at one unfinished corner. There are seasons where God holds things back, not to punish you, but to prepare what's on the other side. Sometimes the promise is ready, but the environment is not. Other times the environment is ready, but you are not. That delay becomes a holding pattern not of defeat, but of divine wisdom. Like a pilot circling above a storm, God keeps you in the air to protect your landing, because if you land too early, you could crash. If you arrive before the time, you could miss the exact intersection of people, timing, and opportunity that God ordained for your breakthrough. Spiritual delays aren't about waiting aimlessly. They are about refinement, alignment, and positioning. They are about developing the parts of you that cannot be rushed. Patience, character, resilience, obedience. These things are not built overnight. They require pressure, and pressure takes time. Every delay stretches your trust, stretches your vision, and stretches your ability to hear beyond what your eyes can see. Because when the outside world is quiet, it forces you to tune in to the still small voice inside. Many times, what you think is stagnation is actually divine insulation. God is sheltering you from distractions, missteps, and premature moves. He's keeping you covered until the right door opens, because not every open door is a God door. And not every opportunity is divine timing. Some things that look good would drain you if they came too early. God knows what you can handle. He knows your limits, and He loves you enough to say not yet even when your heart is screaming now. The silence you're experiencing may not be heaven ignoring you. It may be heaven orchestrating a greater plan. While you're measuring delay by days and weeks, God is measuring it by eternity. He's moving people into place, shifting things in the spiritual realm, and preparing favor in rooms you haven't even walked into yet. There are people you haven't met yet who are going to open the very doors you've been praying for. But God needs them to be ready just as much as He needs you to be. Think about the moments when Jesus delayed. When He waited to go to Lazarus, everyone thought He was late, but He wasn't. He was planning to resurrect, not just heal. If He had come on their schedule, they would have missed the miracle. What looked like a delay was actually divine strategy to reveal something deeper than anyone expected. And that's how God works in your life too. He delays not to deny, but to amplify, so that when the moment finally arrives, there's no question who made it happen. We often underestimate what's being worked out in the waiting. We assume that because we don't see movement, there is no progress. But God's plans are often hidden until the appointed time. Just because the seed hasn't broken through the soil doesn't mean it's not growing. The roots are taking hold, the foundation is being laid, the future is being shaped in unseen places. It's in these spiritual delays that your prayer life deepens, your discernment sharpens, your dependence on God becomes more real. You stop trying to control everything and start surrendering the pieces. And surrender is where true faith is born. Not in the instant answers, but in the long stretches of trust where you have to keep walking even when nothing is visible on the horizon. What feels like a pause in your plan is part of a much bigger preparation in His. God delays things until they are undeniable. He waits until the situation is fully set, until your enemies can't deny the blessing, until your doubts are silenced by His power, until you are fully ready to not just receive but carry what He's promised. So don't mistake spiritual delay for rejection. Don't assume the stillness means you've been abandoned. What you're waiting for is not just good. It's God, and God doesn't do anything by accident. The end of June 2025 marks a turning point in heaven's timeline. There are moments in time that don't just pass. They shift things. They realign destinies. They set spiritual clocks into motion. The end of June 2025 is not just another date on a calendar. It is a spiritual threshold, a marked point in heaven's design where what's been hidden begins to be revealed, and what's been delayed begins to be released. It's not by chance that you're alive in this time, praying in this season, walking through these specific trials. There is a divine setup in motion, and the countdown is not toward chaos, it's toward clarity, fulfillment, and divine manifestation. God has appointed times for everything under heaven, the crossing of seasons, the falling away of old things, the birth of the new. These appointments are not vague, they are strategic. They are decreed from above, and when the time hits, the atmosphere begins to shift. What once seemed sealed shut starts to open. What was dry begins to flow. What felt lifeless begins to move again. And that movement is not accidental. It's the result of divine preparation meeting divine timing. Everything you've been going through, every test, every trial, every delay, has been leading to a moment, and this moment isn't just personal, it's prophetic. It's part of a larger timeline that connects not only your individual journey, but also the spiritual trajectory of nations, families, and generations. You are a piece in a divine mosaic that God has been arranging with precision, and when June 2025 closes out, it won't just mark the end of a season, but the ignition of one. What was spoken over you in the past, what you cried out for in prayer, what you were promised in the quiet, this is when the page begins to turn. There's a stirring in the spirit realm that has already begun. The shaking that many have felt in their hearts, the unusual restlessness, the strange alignments and disconnections, all of it is a sign that God is rearranging the stage. He is removing some people, repositioning others, and preparing the places where His glory will be revealed. What looks like confusion on the surface is actually alignment at a higher level. The end of June is not a deadline, it is a lifeline, a spiritual checkpoint that separates the preparation from the performance, the wilderness from the release. God is not bound by earthly seasons, but he uses them. He places signs and signals in the times and dates we overlook. And when he marks a moment, heaven responds, angels are dispatched, doors are commanded to open. Delays are lifted. Assignments are activated. The pressure you've been feeling is not just opposition. It's spiritual birth pain. The weight of what you're carrying is tied to what's about to be delivered. And delivery comes with timing. Heaven's turning points don't always announce themselves loudly. Sometimes they come in stillness, in the quiet confirmation of a word, in the shift of a heart, in the final moments of waiting. But when they hit, they leave no doubt. Suddenly, things start happening that don't make logical sense. Suddenly, people start showing up, ideas click, provision flows, and what was held up begins to fall into place. This is what happens when spiritual timing meets divine readiness. What you've been sensing deep in your soul. The anticipation, the holy unrest, the knowing that something's coming. You weren't imagining it. You were discerning the calendar of heaven. You were picking up on something your natural mind couldn't quite explain. God's people always sense a shift before it fully arrives. That's why the warfare increased. That's why the resistance came harder. The enemy always tries to fight what he can't stop, but he's already too late. The moment has already been written. You've been walking through a season that's felt heavy, unclear, sometimes even endless. But heaven doesn't operate on feelings. It operates on fulfillment, and fulfillment is tied to time, not your time, but God's. When he declares that a season is about to shift, it's not a prediction. It's a decree. The turn has already begun in the unseen, and soon what has been incubating in secret will begin to manifest in the open. So get ready. Stand still when he says wait. Move when he says go. Praise him even when you don't understand, because when the end of June 2025 arrives, the curtain is going to rise. The world will see what God has been building behind the scenes, and so will you. Amen.